I've mentioned this in my previous videos, but just to reiterate, I'm a 21-year-old senior in college, and I'll be working in investment banking after I graduate. I was a summer analyst at the bank this past summer, and I received a return offer to come back next year as a full-time analyst. I've been asked by so many of you, or one of you, to cover this topic. So in this video, I'm going to briefly cover what investment banks do, how deal teams are structured, and what a fairly typical day looked like for me over the summer. Spoiler alert, it was not pretty. Investment banks are well known for their high pay, but also for the incredibly long hours, the need to be on call 24/7, and the pretty detrimental impact that job can have on your mental and physical health. But even with all of that, these jobs are some of the most competitive roles in the world. For example, the acceptance rate for my summer intern class was sub 1%. It's one of the most coveted roles because of the prestige, the exit opportunities, and that stamp of approval you get if you can make it through your analyst years. So what do investment banks do? An investment bank as a whole has many different parts to it, ranging from research, sales and trading, asset management, and more. What I'll be talking about specifically is the investment banking division. This group essentially helps companies work through big, complex financial transactions that are often some of the most important milestones in the lifetime of a company. There are two main deal types that the investment banking division works on. The first one being financings. These can be equity financings like through an IPO or follow-on offering, or debt financings. Then you have M&A, or mergers and acquisitions, in which you're helping a company acquire another company, helping a company sell itself, or helping two companies merge together. And then there are also two primary types of work that teams do. The first one being client service. This is where you're pitching different transaction ideas to the client, helping them understand where the market is heading and what valuations look like, providing strategic insights to increase market share, thinking about expansion into new countries, and a variety of other things. Secondly, are live deals. This is when the client actually decides to move forward with the transaction, and you, as the investment bank, guide and help them work through that entire process. It can take months or even years of client service before it actually translates into a live deal. Moving on, how are deal teams structured? At the top, you have your managing director. This is the person who maintains the client relationship and understands the market and industry well enough to come up with ideas to pitch. They're essentially the ones bringing in the live deals. Below the MDs are the directors. They serve as a liaison between clients and the lower levels of the team. They're also in the stage of building their own book of clients in hopes of eventually getting promoted to MD. Next, you have the vice presidents, or VPs. They manage the deal lifecycle, make sure everything runs smoothly, and oversee the associates and analysts. Below the VPs are the associates. They are the ones driving the deal day to day and checking the models and decks created by the analysts before anything gets sent up the chain. Finally, you have the analysts. These are the people doing the grunt work, conducting research, building out financial models, and preparing presentations. Actually, even further below that, you have me, the summer analyst, who is essentially just helping out the analysts and associates with tasks like research, basic presentations, comps, and other simple things. Now, before we get into what you guys are waiting for, the day in the life, I just want to remind you guys that if you're enjoying the video, please like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment down below and I'll be replying to every single one of you. It really helps support the channel. With that out of the way, let's get right to it. I usually wake up at around 8 a.m. and immediately check my phone to see if there are emails that are urgent. Usually there wouldn't be. So then I'd get to my morning routine and get ready in my discounted Charles Turwood shirts and my no-name brand suit jacket. I leave at around 9 a.m. to catch the bus, which drops me near my office. I get into the office at around 9:30 a.m., which is actually pretty early because most of the office comes in between 10 and 11 a.m. I usually try to get in by 9 a.m. because that's when my director gets in, but on this particular day, I got in a bit later since I had left the office at 2 a.m. the night before. I grab a coffee and some fruit from the pantry and eat back at my desk while looking through new emails and scrolling through the Wall Street Journal and Financial Times. At this point in the summer, I'm working on 3 deals, 2 pitches, both in the FIG space, and 1 live deal in TMT. Since I was a generalist intern over the summer, I ended up working across 8 deals, spanning FIG, TMT, and energy. Around 10:30 a.m., I get an email from my associate regarding one of the FIG pitches where we are pitching a bunch of acquisition targets to the client. He really quickly asked me to output the changes he had made to the model onto our pitch deck. And around the same time, I get comments from my analyst on the live TMT deal regarding work I'd submitted the previous night. This involved a data analysis task that essentially helped us determine the model inputs for the revenue breakdown. She provides me with new clarifying information that the client gave about the raw data and asked me to redo some of the analysis with that in mind. From around 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., I'm working on these tasks and communicating with my analyst and associate to keep them updated on the progress. Since these particular tasks weren't super urgent, at 12:30 p.m., I message a couple of intern friends to see if they want to go grab lunch. Some say no because they're swamped, understandably so, but usually one person is free. We go to a food court near the office and chat about the work that we're doing. I made it a habit to avoid eating lunch alone every day because I wanted to build relationships with the other interns. We bring our food back to the office and eat in the lounge. I usually get the classic corporate slop bowl. It tasted fine and it wasn't that expensive. By around 1:30 p.m., we're done with lunch and head back to our desks to keep working. During lunch, I'm obviously still checking my phone in case anything urgent pops up that requires me to head immediately back. By 2:30 p.m., I wrap up the tasks that my analyst and associate gave me and send it over to them to review. Now I'm waiting for feedback or new work to come up, so I walk around the office and go see what the other interns are up to. When it's not busy, there's actually quite a lot of downtime in investment banking where you're just waiting for comments from seniors. After a bit of a break, I asked my associate if there was anything I could help out with, and he lets me know that there isn't anything yet. So around 3 p.m., I go for a coffee chat with one of the VPs that I didn't get to interact with much over the summer. I use this time to get to know him, learn about his role and his path to investment banking, while also asking him for feedback and advice about securing a return offer. This usually takes around 45 minutes, and I think coffee chats are super beneficial because they help people put a face to your name, and that increases your visibility when the firm evaluates interns at the end of the summer. Plus, you get free coffee. At 4 p.m., my director on the FIG deal calls over the VP, the associate, and me to go through the pitch deck we were working on earlier in the day. He gives feedback on the spot, and I'm frantically taking notes as he speaks. He asks us to update the deal rationale, add some case studies on prior transactions, adjust some of the valuations we had run, and make smaller edits involving formatting, wording, and content. My associate assigns me some of the pages to work on, and I get started on those. This takes me until around 7 p.m., and after triple checking everything to make sure all the feedback has been incorporated, I send the updates to my associate. He gives me some small comments, I fix them, and we send the deck back to our VP for review. Around that time, one of the other interns pings me on Teams and tells me to order dinner so we can eat together. Using the meal stipend we're given, I go ahead and order some pad thai and crispy tofu. Soon after, my analyst on the TMT deal messages me on Teams and asks if I was busy and if I could swing by her desk. Of course, I say I'm available. I go over and she asks if I'd be willing to take a crack at spreading the financials for the client. This included building a historical and forecasted 3 financial statements, an operating expense breakdown, a PP&E schedule, a net working capital schedule, and a debt schedule. I don't need to make any assumptions, just create a working model that balances. Since this was a global client, she gives me a model she made for one of the other regions and asked me to replicate the formatting and structure. At 8 p.m., I go to the pantry and eat dinner with the other interns, but I eat pretty quickly because I know I need to get started on the model. By 8:30 p.m., I'm back at my desk working. It takes me a couple of hours to actually understand the calculations and the example model because it's broken down both annually and quarterly. While I'm working, at around 9:30 p.m., my associate from the FIG team messages me asking if I can help with a quote-unquote quick benchmarking task. Of course, it's not quick, but I'm obviously still available. The team maintains this massive spreadsheet of firms in the industry that gets updated every quarter after earnings, and he needed me to pull all the latest financials and refresh the whole thing. FIG is also known for being one of the most complicated sectors in banking, and a lot of the metrics and ratios were ones I had literally never seen before. So I'm digging through 10Ks, investor presentations, and the most obscure corners of Google, trying to understand what each number even means. And to top it off, he mentions I need to finish this before going home for the night. By around 11 p.m., after a lot of double checking and a lot of digging, I finally finished pulling every figure, with the sources linked in every single cell, and send the updated Excel to my associate. He says thanks and that he'll review it tomorrow, and he heads home for the night. My TMT analyst messages me asking for a progress update on the model, and I let her know I'm still in the early stages because of the FIG work. Since this was a live deal and we're already understaffed, she asked if it would be possible to send a first draft of the model before I went home. I say yes, of course. I grab a coffee and walk around the floor to see who else is in the office. As expected, basically all the other interns were still there, while most of the full-time employees have gone home. They're still online, just working from home. I see one of my intern friends and move my stuff to sit next to him, so I'm not just alone staring at my screen throughout the night. I put on my headphones and grind out the models to the best of my ability. It's now 3 a.m. I send over the model to my analyst. She's also still working because of the urgency of the deal. I ask if there was anything else I could help out with, but she says thanks and that I can head home for the night. I call an Uber back home, and by 3:30 a.m., I'm in bed, ready to pass out. I'm ready to do it all over again the next day. So that was what an actual day looked like for me as an intern in investment banking this past summer. At the end of the summer, I was told that I was a top bucket intern, and this was the type of hours I had to pull to get there. I hope that was insightful for you guys and gives a more clear perspective into what investment banking looks like and whether it could be a career for you. I plan on making further videos regarding investment banking recruiting and how to succeed in getting a return offer, but also on other topics spanning personal finance and career to give an insider look into how I'm building up my future for success. If you're a like-minded and driven individual who wants more, subscribe and follow along.